Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Two Moms and Some Labels. Two Moms and Some Labels is a platform for parents and families with children with a disability to come together in a shared space to network, convene, commune, and just share and gain ideas on how to persevere through challenging times. My name is Brittany, and today I have a special guest with me that is going to talk about Down syndrome, Trisomy 21, if I am correct. And before I even get into all of that, I just, want to share with you all a little bit about this platform and how we like to, interview and connect with families that are also, going through this journey that myself and Nicole are going through, and just kind of share information and reach out to families that may be going through what one of our guests are going through, have been through, and how they have been able to get through some of those challenges, and also to be able to just educate the general public, the general population about our children and their disabilities, their diagnoses, and how they can just better support our community and our children, and just let them be a part of the community as well, being inclusive. That's what we're all about. So we just want to share information, share our journeys and experiences. And so that's what we're all about. And my special guest today, I'm going to let her, introduce herself and take it from there.
Okay. So I'm Kaitlin Dudziec. I am a parent of a child with Down syndrome. He is a year and a half. I also have a 6.5-year-old, typically developing child. And I am also an occupational therapist. So, yeah.
And, it's just so amazing how, we can be presented with, our special children, our gifts, and be able to still, complete or, follow along our journey of career paths that we were pursuing or wanted to pursue, or how it has even expanded our minds and our hearts to be able to connect with other, career paths or journeys, or be able to help other families as well. So can you just talk a little bit about, how you got into OT? Were you in OT before you had your son? How did your journey start?
So I've been in OT for almost 10 years. So I started kind of right out of undergrad. I knew I wanted to do OT. Initially thought I wanted to be a speech therapist, and I observed kind of in a clinic, and I followed a child through their speech session, and then OT, and they're jumping around and going on swings and doing obstacle courses. And I was like, I want to do this job instead of speech therapy. So that's kind of how I found OT. So I started off working with the autism population down at a preschool. So 3 to 5-year-olds with autism. So my world was autism for a very long time. I love that population. And then we moved up to Jacksonville, and I started working with Early Steps. And so that's the early intervention program in Florida, working with birth to 3 with all sorts of disabilities. So Down syndrome, autism, just developmental delay, more physical disabilities, CP, things like that. So I was there for about 7 years. And then I had my son, who with Down syndrome, and I stayed home with him for about a year and a half, and just recently started back in the school system. And I really think, having my own child, just initially I have a 6-year-old, and that just brought in my ability to connect with other parents and just bringing a parent. But then having a child with a disability, I feel like I was really able to know where these parents are coming from and understand what they're going through a lot more than I did just having a typically developing child.
Yeah. So, like when you had your son and you have been working, with these children and early intervention and early steps. And when you had your son, was it a surprise, or you felt more prepared to be able to deal with the challenges that were maybe going to come ahead? Or were there things that maybe happen or have happened along the journey so far that you kind of were like, I need help from the community. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Or did you feel like you were like more prepared because of your experience working with families that have children with disabilities already?
I almost felt like I was too prepared. I almost knew too much, and was, I think, more stress on myself knowing what could happen instead of just focusing on where we're at now. When my son was born, he was born with duodenal atresia, so his stomach was kind of blocked off from his large intestine. So he was in the NICU for about a month and a half. He had surgery at 4 days old to correct that. And so I feel like that, even though I've worked with NICU parents, I still didn't fully grasp what it's like to have a child in the NICU. And, I feel like it was almost like having too much information. I kind of just wish I wouldn't have known as much as I did to just really go through the process, day by day and minute by minute. But, I think now that we're on the other side of things, I am very appreciative of the knowledge that I have in terms of, health-wise, he's doing great, but more like the physical aspects of, oh, this is what we need. These are the therapies I need to get him in, or this is what we need to be doing to get him close to walking or for the eating, things like that.
And so with his condition, is that something that is going to be like ongoing, or the surgery, did it just correct it and it won't come back anymore?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thankfully, it was a one-time surgery and we shouldn't have to deal with that ever again, hopefully. Yeah, it should have corrected it. And so far there's been no issues with that specific condition that he has.
And then, so like I would say you're fairly new with like coming out of the NICU, because it's been years, like 12 years since I've, had to go to the NICU. So like, what was your experience like in the NICU for you? How was that for your family?
It was hard. We had at the time she was 5-year-old at home. So just trying to figure out how we would balance. Thankfully, my husband was off work. And so we were able to navigate it together and take turns going. But walking out of that hospital when I was discharged and he was still in there was probably one of the hardest things to do. And in fact, I think we went home and I 20 minutes later just turned around and came back and just sat at the NICU because I just couldn't handle him being there. For the first few weeks we were there, we were in the big floor where they have, you get a little tiny spot and you get a chair and you get to sit next to the bed. You're not supposed to sleep next to the bed. You're not supposed to eat in there. You have to leave to go to the bathroom. So I was putting my health kind of on the wayside, skipping meals and, just trying to drink less so I wouldn't have to leave and come back. But we got moved. We were very thankful to be moved up to our own room for the last week and a half. And we could sleep there. We could bring food up there. So we were able to spend a lot more time. And I feel like that really helped him kind of heal and get to the point of being able to be discharged, that we were able to be with him, as much as we could.
So were you able to bring your daughter in to the NICU, or did they still have it where you weren't allowed to bring other children in?
No. And she wasn't able to come in. I'm so thankful we live in the technology era that we do, because we FaceTimed multiple times a day with her and just to show her him, because she was, oh my gosh, so excited to meet him. And just everyone you talk to, my baby brother's coming, my baby brother's going to be here, so, but I think because it was flu season, it was in December, they weren't allowing any children in. So that was hard.
So, when we were in the NICU, it was so hard because it was during the time where we didn't have FaceTime. I don't think there was, where you can communicate and see each other through the phone, through an app. And, it was very difficult because I was a young mother and, people may have said I wasn't a good mom because
Mm.
I wasn't, like staying at the NICU all day long with my daughter while she was in there. Like my daughter was in the NICU for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
So for me to like stay in the NICU every single day, all day, with her, like, and then not be able to touch her because she was, in the like incubator thing, and we
Mhm.
couldn't touch her. All we could do was look at her for a long time. And then we did have a little tiny, spot with the little curtain, and you could just, sit there. Like it was so depressing, and
Mhm.
it was so hard. Like when I did go home, I would go home and just cry. I couldn't even sleep. Like I would be calling all the
Mhm.
time, like every hour, and checking to see, how she was doing. But it was just so like depressing just being up there and looking at my child, not being able to touch her, not knowing what was going to happen. And I felt like, if I stayed there and I like cried and showed my emotions and things like that, then they would feel like, oh, she's an unstable mom, or,
Mhm.
unfit mom. And so it was just so hard for me. I felt like for my time then to just stay there and all day long and just cry. I want to cry all day looking at my child and not being able to touch her.
Mhm.
Um, so I didn't stay every single day, but I was, up there every day. We were there visiting her, and, until the end of the night. So, that was really hard to be able to do that and handle that. And I'm glad that they have changed, those things now for
Mhm.
parents to be able to, sleep there with their child and share those first moments with their child also. And then we have the technology, like you said. So, that's so great. And like I said, everybody's journey is so different and their experience is
Mhm.
so different. And I remember when we left the NICU, it was like, okay, what's next? What are we supposed to do? Because there was like no information really given to us. We just were given like a packet, and it was like, all right,
Mhm.
thanks, for your stay here. So
Mhm.
with you having your experience as being an OT, being in early steps, when you guys left the NICU, like, was there any information given to you? How were you able to kind of transition from the NICU to home, and what was going to happen next?
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like my experience as an OT did not help me at all with the transition. When we left, yeah, it was kind of the same thing. It's like, here's a packet. You need to pick up this prescription from the pharmacy. You need to see your pediatrician. He needs to be eating. Eating was what kept us in the NICU for so long. He was just, with Down syndrome, they tend to be like with that lower tone. It takes them a lot more effort to do things. So feeding is from a bottle is one of those things. And so they were like, he needs to eat, I can't remember the amount it was, but this certain amount per feeding to keep up his weight. Well, we got him to that at the NICU, and then it was like the first night he came home, he couldn't do it anymore. It was like almost just too much for him to do. I think it was like 50 milliliters. Like it wasn't even that
Mm-hmm.
much. And so we went to the pediatrician the next day, and I was like, he's at like 30, he's not at 50. And because in the NICU, they drilled it into me so much that he has to eat this certain amount. I feel like it caused some anxiety. I had some anxiety around being home with him and doing it by myself, because at that time my husband had to go back to work. So it kind of fell on me throughout the day. Um, and I was pumping on top of that, getting up with him in the middle of the night, and it was just the feeding for me. I couldn't get past. I do feel like I had, some knowledge in that. We went to the pediatrician, and I was like, okay, these are the places I need referrals to. I know that we need to see ophthalmology. I know we need early steps. I know we need, so I just right away went in and was like, these are the referrals I need you to make me. And so I felt very blessed that I knew that side of
Mm-hmm.
things.
Yeah.
Um, but there were a lot of stressful, and then I think just being in the NICU, you get so comfortable with the nurses coming in and kind of doing everything. You wait for them to change a diaper. You wait for them to,
Yeah.
do a bath. And I'm like, wait, so when do I change his diaper? When do I, when is he tired? So getting out of that kind of regimented and just feeling out my baby, that was kind of a harder adjustment as well. But we made it through. We got there.
Yeah.
It just took some
And then it was
time.
more so too, I'm pretty sure of you just, being a mom and just, experiencing being a mom again and not, having all these, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that. This is what, is supposed to happen. Just you are going through, you just had a baby, you're going through those different, emotions. Your body is still changing and, going through those different, like steps of trying to get back to normalcy. So with all that in play, like I'm pretty sure, it's just like overwhelming and you kind of want to turn off your work hat and enjoy the time with your child and, getting to know how this condition maybe will affect them or is affecting them and how you can help your child and yourself, not only physically but mentally as well. So
Exactly.
I'm sure it was a lot. And so your son has Down syndrome, and can you like tell us exactly what Down syndrome is?
Sure. So Down syndrome is a genetic condition that it affects the 21st chromosome. So there's an extra copy of that chromosome. And so with that, there's definitely a range of what it can affect, but it typically affects the tone or muscle tone. So what that is just how your body is able to kind of move their muscles. And so for kids with lower tone, it takes them a little bit more effort to move their muscles. So you can also have higher tone on the other side, not with Down syndrome, but with other conditions where it's really hard, you're kind of stuck in a flex position. So it's hard to get out of that. So with that, the lower tone, it just takes kids with Down syndrome longer to learn how to do motor. So rolling, crawling, things like that. My son's 1.5 years and we've just gotten hands and knees crawling, pulling to stand, things like that. So that's probably the biggest thing with Down syndrome is the tone that you see when they're babies. Otherwise, they're kind of like a typical baby. The tone also impacts eating. So a lot of these kids you'll see like choking or difficulty with chewing and swallowing. So that takes a little bit longer for them to develop those skills. Also with Down syndrome, as they start to get older, cognitive development. So how they're learning, typically these kids are showing like a mild to a severe intellectual disability. But you don't really know that until they start getting into school and kind of see what they're learning and how they're picking up on things. There's a lot of also with a genetic condition, a lot of medical concerns. So heart conditions. So my son does have a heart condition, an atrial septal defect, which will be repaired via open heart surgery when he's 3 or 4 years old. We're very blessed in that that's his heart condition because it's really not as severe. There's some babies with Down syndrome that they have to have open heart surgery when they're just a couple days old. So we're feeling very blessed that we can hold off for a few years, but that is very common. I think it's like over 50% of babies with Down syndrome are born with a heart condition. Wow. They also have like lower immune system, so just kind of watching out for health. Trying to think of other big things, but I think a lot of it's a genetic condition. So with any genetic condition, you're going to see other parts of the body's impacted. So my son also with that duodenal atresia, he has malrotation of his intestines. So his intestines are all flipped, which we always have to remember when we're going in, if there's something stomach comes up in the future, we have to remember that to tell all his doctors so that they know when they're looking at the right side, oh, this is actually what you would see on a typical person on their left side.
And so he's 1.5 now. So, and then you started going back to work in the school system, right?
Yeah, I actually just started. I was lucky in that I was able to take 1.5 years off. I kind of eased myself in. I did pick up some hours starting in January for like a private company. But yeah, just started back full time at the beginning of August with school.
So is he at daycare? How does that work for you?
Yeah, so we're again very lucky that my parents live close by and my mother-in-law lives close by. So he's there 2 days a week with either of them. And then he's so social. And so we did put him in daycare 3 days a week.
Oh,
And he loves it. It's a daycare we're very familiar with. My daughter went to it, and it's a little church daycare. So it's small class. We know all the teachers, the director. They're amazing. He's gotten sick already, though. I think
yeah.
he's only gone maybe 4 or 5 times because he just
Mhm.
has been sick with typical daycare germs.
Right.
But thankfully, nothing too bad.
So does he get other services also?
Yep. So we are with Early Steps. We get physical therapy through them directly once a week, as well as speech consult once a month with them. But then I'm also doing aquatic therapy with Ashley with Jack's Kids Aquatics, who you've had on. So he does that once a week. And then 1 or 2 times a week, we're doing treadmill training, which there's some new research out there with his physical therapist on once kids are kind of able to sit up on their own, you can start getting them on the treadmill to kind of learn those motor patterns of walking and getting comfortable with balance and things like that. So those are kind of the big things that we're hitting right now.
Wow. So is there a difference between because I was just thinking when my daughter she was going to physical therapy, they would put her on this like harness thing
Mm-hmm.
and then she would be on the treadmill and they would be like trying to move her
Mm-hmm.
legs like that. So is that the same thing or is it
Mm-hmm.
different?
Nope,
Okay.
that's pretty much what he's doing. He's so
Okay.
small, though, they don't need to necessarily put him in a
Yeah.
harness. So it's the
Yeah.
PT just kind of supporting him at his hips. But yeah, getting him learning how to move those legs and learn how to balance and weight shift and things like that. So it's really fun to watch, watch him up on the treadmill.
Yeah. And since you had worked with early steps before, we were just talking about this a week or so ago. So when you have early step services, if you are getting like speech therapy outpatient, are you able to also get speech through early steps, or you have to do like one or the other with early steps?
So, I mean, it's really up to the parent, but so Early Steps is state funded. Um,
Hmm.
so they like to try and recoup funds through insurance, but you don't have to necessarily allow them to bill your insurance. And so if they're not billing your insurance, then you can go outpatient and get the same service outpatient.
Okay.
Um, we're doing both of the companies that we're working with for his outpatient therapy are cash based. So that really they're not billing insurance. So it's not affecting
Okay.
anything. I think what's most important though is making sure all the therapists are on the same page.
Hmm.
Because working as an OT in Early Steps, I've had other kids that are going outpatient for OT and we're kind of on different pages and it makes it a little bit difficult
Yeah.
to the child gets confused. And so, I'm very lucky in that his Early Steps OT is also his outpatient treadmill training OT. And
Okay.
then she works well with Ashley. So we're all kind of on the same page and working on the same, similar things.
Yeah, definitely, like the collaborative care is so
Mm-hmm.
important for our kids. And then even on us as parents, it makes things less stressful. And,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that they're kind of listening to what we want for our child and what the goals are for our child also. Um, because I know sometimes it can just be overwhelming because like
Mm-hmm.
we go to a private school and they have speech services at the private school and then just my daughter goes to outpatient speech and I'm like and then we have ABA and then ABA is like still working on like speech communication
Mm-hmm.
also so I'm like okay it's too
It's a
many
lot.
hands in the pot. Like it's too many things
Mhm.
going on. So I was like, we won't do the school speech. We will just stick with outpatient and ABA because, you know, they're both on the same page. They're working together instead of
Yeah,
bringing in a third party to start all over again. It's, you know, it's like,
exactly.
it's a lot. So,
Mhm.
you know, just as a parent, like you have to know what your limits are and
Mhm.
also, you know, what your child's limits are. And you don't want to stretch your child or
Yeah.
yourself too thin trying to, you know, be everywhere and get all the resources at
Yeah.
once.
I agree. I feel like then it starts to almost be a negative. Like we saw that over the summer. We kind of pushed my son really, really hard and
Mhm.
we weren't seeing much progress. And then we went on vacation for a week and he didn't have anything. And he came back like, I mean, it was like he picked up all the things he was supposed to be doing 2 weeks ago. And we're like, maybe he just needed a vacation
Yeah.
from everything. So we've kind of backed off a little bit, especially with him starting school. That's a lot on him too. But the
Yeah.
nice thing about early steps is they go to his school. So his therapist, Jenny, um, she's with All Together Wellness, but she goes out to his school one day a week, and then we go to her twice a week for that treadmill training.
Nice.
Yep.
And so with oh gosh, with Down syndrome, are there like any associations or any
Mhm.
like foundations or things around town that you have found to be of assistance or that could like help
Mhm.
other families also?
Yeah, so there's two big ones. I would say the biggest one is the Down Syndrome Association of Jacksonville. They're amazing. You can reach out to them. We got a prenatal diagnosis, and I started to reach out to them, but then just with a lot of other things with my pregnancy, I kind of waited till after he was born. But they provide so many resources to families, just in terms of getting you even connected with other families in the community that are similar aged. They have similar aged children, or if you're, older. But they do play groups. They do funding for therapy. Every family that comes through them gets funding up to $1,500 for therapy.
Oh,
They're starting to do funding as well for ABA therapy. Um,
okay.
they have socials, they have family get-togethers. They also have an adult side, so they have just different groups and socials for adults with Down syndrome as well to get connected and hooked up. And then the other foundation around here that I know, I'm not as involved with them, but they sent me like a care package at the beginning when I first had our son and everything. They're the Tesori Foundation, and they're a little bit smaller than the DSHA, but they also are very supportive of Down syndrome families in the community.
Awesome. And so, you know, like what is some advice that you would give to parents that you know, they have been given this diagnosis of Down syndrome, you know, for their child, either, you know, pre-birth or, you know, they're dealing with it now
Mhm.
after their child is born and they're trying to, you know, just figure things out. Like, what advice would you give them?
Um, just know that you're going to have an amazing child. I mean, I think it was hard for me when my son was first born not to think of the diagnosis, especially when he wasn't in front of me. So when he was sleeping or at the NICU, all I could think of was the Down syndrome diagnosis. And it's scary because there's such a range of where your child can be at. But that's with any child. Your child could,
Yeah.
be born what you think typical and then develop something later on.
Mhm.
So just really appreciate them for them. Kids with Down syndrome, they're so loving and they just want to be loved. They're like a typical baby in that way. But just know that your life is about to get so much more joyous, and there's just so much love that these kids and adults bring.
Yes. And, you know, I am a firm believer in that, you know, I have been given a gift that has been able to allow me to explore the gifts that I didn't know I had
Hmm.
myself to be able to become a better mom, a better friends, just a better human in general, and figure out like what my purpose and cause kind of really is because of the gift that I have been given, and the journey that I have been, placed on with my child. So, I definitely agree with you. And I encourage parents and families, or, whoever's caring for a loved one with a disability, to, explore the community, explore the resources within the community, try and, socialize and talk with other families and meet people, and just don't feel like you're alone on this journey, because there's so many people going through the same thing, especially here in Northeast Florida. I really wish they would have like just this big clinic hospital for, all of our kids with disabilities, to just be able to have all of the resources that we need in one place. So, hopefully in the future that would be something, but definitely, there's a supportive community here for you all, and we're all going through different things. Our children have different disabilities, and like Kaitlin said, how it presents or how everyone is affected by it is differently, or what their abilities are, maybe different than others, even if they do have the same diagnosis or disability. So, that doesn't mean to limit your child and what they can or can't do. And, just try your best to help them along the way, and know that we're here to support you along the way. And I would like to thank Kaitlin so much for coming on and sharing her journey and life with Trisomy 21. And I can't wait to hear about all the great things that your son is going to do as he continues to progress through therapy. And just thank you so much for coming on and just sharing a little bit about your journey and yourself, your family, and how you have been able to, get through the challenges that have been presented forth for you and your family. And I hope that, it encourages other families out there that may be going through the same thing, or about to start their journey, to know that it's okay, and you are going to have a joy of a person coming to brighten your life. So thank you so much, Kaitlin, for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here and just share my journey. And like Brittany said, just reach out. If you're struggling and you're going through this, reach out. There's so many people out there that would love to embrace you and just go through the journey with you.
Yes. And, once again, as we say, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Two Moms and Some Labels. And until next time, we will see you all. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.